Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Took quite the pause there between ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. That was weird. But today's video is going to be on the man, the myth, the legend, quite frankly, the Celtic legend, Scott Brown. And, I mean, amongst everything that you've probably already heard, if you've not heard, then get ready for a bombshell. It surrounds transfer news, yes, and the departure of Scott Brown. Perhaps this is it. Perhaps this is where we bid farewell to Scott Brown. Nothing is in concrete. Nothing has been decided. There's still a way to go, and I don't know how long I'll be able to talk in this video about the possibility of Scott Brown leaving, because he's not actually left yet. But there's a lot to talk about surrounding this, how it impacts Celtic, how it impacts the players. You know, this is one of the greatest captains our club has ever seen, and he could potentially be leaving the club before, 10 in a row, which is something that I thought I would never see. I honestly did imagine that if we do get to 10 in a row, there's nothing saying that 10 in a row is a guarantee, but if we were to get to that, promised land and were to make 10 in a row, I always imagined the man lifting the league title, the 10th league title in a row, was going to be Scott Brown. I thought he would still be the captain, whether or not he was a regular first team player or not, because he is getting older, as we know. I still imagined he would be the man lifting the trophy for the 10th title. But here we are, it's really came from nowhere. When we came to January and there was a kind of initial rumour, but it kind of came from nowhere that it was that he could be leaving to go over to the Australian A-League and play his football over there, take his talents to the land down under. You can say a big shock that actually could be happening, and it's not just some daft rumour. Like, we have official confirmation that there has been contact, that Scott Brown has to make a decision. Melbourne's executives and such have spoken about the scenario, and even Brendan Rodgers has spoken about the scenario, and that's the things that I was about to go over there. So from what we have so far, the club is Western Melbourne, over in the A-League. 12 years at Celtic we're talking here, and he could be off. That's mad. I thought he would stay at Celtic and retire here, and I'm not going to hold anything. I'm not going to say a bad word about the guy. And I think I'll save my thanks and farewells until the official confirmation comes through that he leaves the club, because there is a massive chance he can still stay, never mind leave. This is a guy who for the last 12 years has lived and breathed Celtic. He has won everything there is to win. We'll get on to that though. So it could be about to end, and heading over to the A-League is a possibility. So the owner, or whoever it is in charge of the report in Australia, the owner has came out and says, we're pretty close with some signings and players, including a marquee signing in Scott Brown. We think Scott Brown has a lot of positives and could make a significant contribution to a new club as a leader on and off the field. So obviously that's a new club over in Australia. They've not really got much of a history as such, but Scott Brown could be prepared to head over, probably get quite a decent wage. I don't imagine he'll be losing out much. I mean, it's a decent life to take, isn't it? Move to a land with, the sun and nice weather and good money and nice houses and such. It's a lovely life to imagine, and Scott Brown will be thinking to himself, it's a nice place to go over and retire in. But will he take it? As I said earlier in the video, he has lived and breathed Celtic Football Club for the last 12 years, and is he ready to give it all up? Now, the main thing on his mind has got to be the fact that, is he good enough to remain a first team player at Celtic? Obviously, we've seen him captain the side yesterday against the Ardrionians, which, I was surprised at, to be honest, considering it's coming all amongst this. I was very surprised to see that, but he did lead the side out yesterday, and I imagine he will do, and he will stay professional through all of this. That's the thing about Scott Brown. Obviously, we've not had to deal with any of this in the past. There's never been really any big rumours of Brown leaving over the last 12 years, but he will handle it with the utmost professionalism, I imagine, until the day comes where he does leave Celtic. But he led the team out yesterday. But is he good enough to remain a first team player at Celtic is going to be the main question on his mind. This season he hasn't looked great. He's struggled with injury and fitness, and even when he has been playing, he was embarrassed at Ibrox, which is hard to say and hard to imagine. Embarrassed at Ibrox. Scott Brown, the man who has dominated the Old Firm games over the last couple of years in the middle of the park. He has been massive. And very influential and important in those games, really creating the presence, bringing that tension, that passion to the field for Celtic has been massive, but it seemed like it just wasn't there when we played them at the end of December, and he was one of the weakest looking players on the park. And overall the season hasn't been great, and this is him coming off the back of what was potentially his greatest ever season in a Celtic shirt. Last year he ended up winning the Celtic Player of the Year, he won numerous awards, he looked fantastic week in, week out, he looked fantastic on a European level as well, and he always has done. Scott Brown. He has, especially under Brendan Rodgers, he's probably been consistently the best player in European games for Celtic up until this season. And it seems this season he's just kind of tailed off. And maybe he has thinking to himself, maybe it is time for me to move on. Maybe it's time for me to let the next bunch of talent come through at Celtic and, take their place in the Celtic starting lineup, because we have an immense group of players that can come in and play in his position. We've got a good group of central midfielders. We've got Cham, we've got Christie, we've got Roger, we've got McGregor. McGregor, is basically the next Scott Brown, and I would love to see McGregor have the chance to captain the club and such in the middle of the park. You've also got a big Ayer who can move into central midfield, and I imagine we will have our eyes on some central midfield as well, as there's been talk of plenty through this transfer window. So he will be thinking to himself, maybe it's a chance for me to move on to a league where, I probably could look a bit better, not have to worry about my fitness as much, and really have an impact in a new club and create something there. There's a lot of options for him, and obviously on the other hand he can stay at Celtic and try and get that 10 in a row, but he'll be thinking to himself, how much of that 10 in a row can I actually play first team football? How much will be worth it? Now, if he does leave the club, I don't believe it'll be the last we ever see of Scott Brown. I imagine in the future he will have the opportunity to come in and coach with the club, manage the club as such. I see those doors being open for him after the service he's given us, but it's not something easy. It's got to be a hard decision for Scott Brown. I respect whatever decision he decides to take. He's got plenty of options in the sense where he will be valued at Celtic. He will still be given chance at Celtic. The relationship he has struck with Brendan Rodgers from day one has been massive in the building of the success that we've had here. 2 trebles back to back that he has captained, Brendan has managed, and since the day that they've met, I remember hearing the story in Clyde 1, Brendan Rodgers, one of the first things he asked for when he was appointed Celtic manager, not even in Glasgow, he says, get me Scott Brown. I want to speak to Scott Brown. That was day one. That was from the minute Brendan Rodgers stepped into the club. They've had a fantastic relationship, player and manager, and it's been vital to the success at Celtic. He has that option on the table. Stay here, be a valued man from everything he has offered and will offer the club. And he has that option to go and get something new, something fresh, a change of scenery, get back into week in, week out football without perhaps the same pressure, because let's face it, if he goes to this West Melbourne side, he's not going to have the same pressure on his back than what he faces here when we come up to these big European games and these Old Firm games. It's not going to be the same for him. And it'd be I don't want him to leave personally. My personal opinion is I hope he remains at Celtic. I respect everything he has given the club, and I don't care what anybody says about his performances this season. He's still a talented player. This is a 34-year-old guy, busts his balls every fucking time he steps in the park for Celtic. Last season he was remarkable, and I'm not one of the people who want to sit and just ignore everything he's given to the club and ignore that last season he gave us there just because he's had a difficult first half of this season. He's just been so massive and influential in Celtic. He's one of the greatest captains we've seen. He's won 8 league titles he's won with Celtic. 8 titles. He's won 8, perhaps 9 by the end of this year if he stays. He's won 4 league cups, or 5 league cups and 4 Scottish cups. That is a fantastic trophy cabinet. One of the most decorated Celtic players of all time. 500 appearances. He's been great for the club in every sense of the word, on and off the field. A leader, a legend. And the one thing that I always say in this channel when it comes to talking about Scott Brown, and when I think of him, he might not be technically the most gifted player on earth. What you get with Scott Brown is greater than just talent with the ball at your feet. He's a leader. He's a presence. He gets the best out of everybody. You cannot find a better captain at points. Honestly, I think Celtic would struggle. You could notice the immense difference when he was gone and Lustig was the stand-in captain. Lustig was a shadow of what Scott Brown was. Not even a shadow, not a full shadow, a half shadow of what Scott Brown was as a leader. What he offers, sometimes you can't get back with talent with your feet. He is a fantastic leader, fantastic player, very passionate. And it would be a shame to see him go, but obviously his career's his choice. And Brendan Rodgers, as I said, has actually spoke on the matter. Brendan Rodgers saying in his press conference this week, he's had a long chat with Scott, which is kept in private, but he knows that at some point fairly soon he'll have to make a decision, and that decision will probably be made by the end of this transfer window. So a big one that affects a lot at Celtic, and we'll see how time goes. My opinion is I hope Brown stays, whether that is to be a week in week out player or to be there for depth. He's a captain, he's a leader, he's a legend, and I would like to see him stay at the club. He's given so much to us. But at the same time, if he leaves, I'm not going to have a problem with it. So let me know your opinions in the comments below around it all. He might end up staying at the club, but we'll soon Let me know your opinions to my opinions as well. As always, make sure to hit like and subscribe. It is very, very appreciated. At the end of the day, he's a legend, and that's Scott Brown, and we'll see where it goes over the next 10 days or so. So I like, subscribe, I'll see you all next time.